Hello, and welcome back to another Star Wars Legion video. Today we are going to be talking about the rest of the units in the Empire faction and where I'm going to be ranking them on a tier list. As always, this is just my opinion. I play only casually right now, so take this with that grain of salt. That is the casual format of this game. So without further ado, we're going to be talking about the mercenary core units first in the Empire faction. I like taking the Black Sun in some of my Empire lists, and I honestly don't mind taking the Pikes. I think they can have some really fun, solid play in this faction, if that's what you're doing. I think they both hit really well. A nice niche sometimes when it comes to the Empire faction. So if you want to take them, take them. But yeah, that is where they're going. I'm not going to be going over their keywords as much since you've already seen these two core units in other videos if you watch the other videos. So yeah, this is just where they're going in the Empire tier list. To start us off with the actual Empire units in the Empire faction, rest of the units tier list, the Stormtrooper, and I'm going to be putting them up in A. And normally I would put this in a B because this is what I would base all the rest of my units around. However, when it comes to the Empire and how many core options the Empire has, I honestly think the Storms deserve the A because they are just the best core option for the Empire. And that might be a hot take. Some people might say the snows. However, with my play style, how I play with my core units in the game, like naked, meaning no upgrades on them, I prefer them moving twice on certain turns. And with that move twice, this core unit gives me the furthest range of movement. So that is why it's A tier in my book. To start us off, they also have precise 1, which means if you have them at a point that you want, you can have them aim and then shoot, and then they get to reroll 3 dice instead of 2, which is just nice as well. Moving on to one of our other core options of the Empire, it's the Shore Troopers. They're too expensive. They're 52 points, which is 10 whole points over the Storms. They have movement 1. They do get black dice instead of white dice, which can be nice if you're trying to kill things. However, like I just said, my play style, I mostly move my core around a lot. And they do shooting sometimes, so like having blacks can be nice, but not for 10 points extra. I'd much rather spend those 10 points somewhere else in my army. So yeah, they're going to be D for me. They're just too expensive and don't do what I want them to do. Moving on to the Riot Troopers. They're 50 points. They have charge and they have hold the line, which means they can surge to crit while in melee, and they surge to the defend while in melee as well. I'm putting them in B. I think they can have a place depending on your list. Say you take Callus, you run Callus with this unit nearby. It's a really interesting thing because then you can run Callus into a commander or operative that you want to lock down and move into this Riot Squad. That means if that unit has disengaged, like a Jin or operative Luke or some of the other people who get disengaged through command cards, that means they won't be able to disengage out, since disengage only allows you to disengage from one unit. However, they still can withdraw, but that means that you successfully lock down that unit for a turn, since that unit won't be able to attack that turn. So yeah, I really rate these if you're taking it in that kind of deal. However, that's the only real place I see them with, is with Callus or just locking them down. Besides that, they're pretty much too expensive, because they're 8 points over the Storms, and they do a little bit less than the Storms. So yeah, gotta move on to the second best option, which I'll put up in the A, is the Snow Troopers. They have move 1, but they have steady. So They lose out on that precise for steady, which means after they move, they can shoot, which is just nice if you want to move, and then shoot. It's a really solid second option, and it can take a place of storms. I do use them interchangeably sometimes, depending on what I want my army to do or what I want my corps to do in that army. So yeah, overall, I think these are the really two options for the Empire faction when it comes to core units, is the storms or snow troopers. If you're taking any other core like the Black Suns or the Riots, then you're spending a little bit more points to do something with them, and you have a specific thing in need. While the snows and storms, you don't really need a specific need for them to do, and they can just versatilely go anywhere on the battlefield that you want them to. Moving on to the Special Forces unit type of the Empire faction. Starting off with the worst unit name in the game, the Imperial Special Forces. I hate this unit's name just because of the confusion it comes when you're talking about them with people or remembering their name. However, I think they are a pretty solid option overall. They have Infiltrate, they have Marksman, which is really good, and they have Reliable 1. I'm going to be putting them in B. I think if you're taking them with like Iden, they're excellent. I would take them with Iden. However, I would take another Special Forces unit of the Empire faction over them, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, they're solid. With aims, they can upgrade their 2 hits, which is just really nice. So you got to keep that in mind. They have a range 1 to 3 gun that's rolling black. They are 68 points for the 4 of them. Just a very solid unit overall. So yeah, with red defense and surge the hit. Moving on to Iden's special unit, which is Inferno Squad. And overall for Inferno Squad, they're 98 points. And for that, I'm putting them in C. I'd rather take Imperial Special Forces, regular Imperial Special Forces unit over the named Inferno Squad. Gideon Hask and Delmeco are okay. I don't think they're worth the point upgrades for what I want this unit to do. And so I'd rather take just 3 blank Imperial Special Forces over Inferno Squad, or even 2 Special Forces and Inferno Squad. Could be cool, but I just don't rate Inferno Squad that high. They do get 1 extra keyword on their thing, which is Rent New Iden, which can be really good since they get a free aim or dodge a turn. But you have to be within range 2 of Iden. So yeah, you can take it if you're taking Iden, and they're a nice upgrade because of that. But I'd just rather take regular Imperial Special Forces for point cost and use points somewhere else. However, if I'm taking Iden, and I much rather take my S tier pick for Imperial Special Forces unit type, which is the Death Troopers. They do cost 72 points, which is 4 points over a base Imperial Special Forces unit. However, they have Mando armor, so they're harder to kill, which is red saves with red surge to save. So they still surge the hit as well. They get precise 2, which means they're re-rolling 4 dice instead of 2. And they have ready 1 and disciplined 1. Now, ready 1, I don't suggest using. I've tried using, but getting rid of a standby token is just too easy for your opponent to do, so it's not really worth wasting an action when not attacking with the Death Troopers. It has its niche, but it's not something that you're going to be doing like every turn with them, unless you can figure it out, which props to you. They get a special gun. Their gun has suppressive on one of its options, which I highly rate. Giving out 2 suppression instead of 1 is always nice. And they have the DLT 19D Trooper, which I highly rate as a trooper unit. It costs 30 additional points, but it rolls 2 red, 1 white with impact 1, and it's just very nice, giving your whole unit an extra health with those red saves. It's really hard to kill. So yeah, really highly rate this unit over any of the other special forces. And that gets me into our last special forces type unit for the Imperials, which are the Scout Troopers. And for my second pick of Imperial Special Forces, I'm putting the Scout Troopers in A tier. I think they are very solid. I think you can have some trouble with them since they have white saves and surge to defend still, and they're a little bit trickier because of that. You have to be a lot more careful with where you're placing them on the battlefield, but they can be very dangerous if you get good at them. With Scout 3 and Sharpshooter 1, they can be a menace first turn, since of how far they can get onto the battlefield. That threat range is further, and they roll 2 black into range 2. So yeah, I really highly rate the Scout Trooper. They have also some of their heavy upgrades are really good. I really like the Charge Saboteur, which is melee the 1. He rolls rainbow plus 1 black with suppressive and blast, which is just really nice, with only a 23-point upgrade to the unit, putting the scouts at 71 points, which is still under all of the rest of the special forces options points there. By the way, basic scouts cost 48 points, so that is why they're just a cheap activation for the Empire, which is always nice if you don't have a lot of points and you're just looking for kind of getting a good unit on the field. You can just have their base cost of 48 points, and you get 4 units that have Scout 3 and can do a little bit on the battlefield. If nothing else, take up some shots from the enemy. So yeah, that is the Scout Troopers. Moving on to the support category. We're going to talk about the E-Web first. I think this is my first D tier when it comes to the Empire faction. I don't rate it. It's slow. It has prepared position, reposition, sentinel. Again, getting rid of the sentinel aspect, because putting suppression on something is pretty easy. Get rid of it. Yeah, it's just not very good. It is an emplacement trooper, which means it still has courage. Yeah, I just wouldn't put this on the battlefield ever. So yeah, take that with it as you will. Moving on to ranged troopers, and I want to like these guys. I want to like these guys a lot. However, I'm going to be putting them in C tier. I think for their point values, which is 70 points, they could just be doing more. They only have 1 health. They do have red saves. There's not a lot you can do with them. Their upgrades are okay. Again, the sweet spot for the meta right now is range 2 and below, so it can be really hard to get value out of them because of objective scoring and such. And once you get into that range, they're just easy to kill. And you need to get them on an objective, because any unit that's not on an objective isn't helping you win the game as much. Now, they can still help you win the game by helping kill people that are on an objective, but you're also not getting as much value out of that unit as you possibly could by having them on the objective, contesting it, and killing people off an objective. So yeah, putting them in C. And we're going to move on to the next support, which is the Dewback, which is my second S tier unit when it comes to the Empire. This thing is just fun. It has Armor 1, Relentless, Reposition, Spur, Unhindered. Relentless with Spur and Unhindered is just solid. Spur allows you to gain a suppression to up your movement value. Reposition just allows you to turn 180 degrees as a notch-based unit in a turn. You don't have and Unhindered means you ignore difficult terrain, which is just really nice sometimes. And Relentless, after you do all that moving, you can attack. So you can move twice with this guy and then attack. And that includes both melee attacks and ranged attacks with Relentless. And it's just a very solid menace on the field. It could surprise your opponent sometimes if they don't realize what the threat range is of your Dewback. They're just very scary units sometimes. So yeah, putting them up in S. If you haven't played with a Dewback, I highly recommend playing with a Dewback. They're really fun. So yes, moving on to our last support here, which is the speeder bike. I'm gonna put them in B. They have cover 1, speeder 1, which means they have to do a full move with speeder 1 at the start of their activation or at the end of their activation. They have surge to both hit and surge to defend because they have white dice. With cover 1 means they always have 1 cover unless the person has sharpshooter 1 or 2. They have a rainbow each in the fixed front position or 2 black anywhere else within range 1 to 2 of their bike. These guys used to be a real menace in the old edition because they could pick up objectives and then run away real fast. And there's 2 of them, so with 3 health each, they're kind of hard to kill. With the old cover rules as well. But now, with the new cover rules, they're a little bit easier to kill. Well, a lot easier to kill. They can't really pick up objectives anymore. There's only a few secondary objectives in the game that even put like tokens on people. So it's not as worth taking them for objective gameplay. I still rate them in B. I might even put them up in A because of their movement and being able to contest objectives fast. I'm going to put them up in A. As I said before, mobility is key sometimes in this game in the new edition, and I really rate mobility, which is why we're putting it up in A instead of B. But if it wasn't for that mobility, it would be B, since they're kind of just decent at killing, and I much rather take the Dewback over the speeder bike when it comes to both mobility and everything else. Since they have speeder 1, they don't get the notch base move of 90 degrees, because every notch base at the start of his move can move up to 90 degrees left or right from where it started. But since they have speeder 1, they get rid of that. So they're a little bit less maneuverable compared to like the Dewback or other ground vehicles or notch-based units in the game. So yeah, we're going to be putting them in A. Moving on to, I kind of wish there was a rule in the game. And I heard that in the past, before I started, that there was a rule in the game that if they hit terrain, they would blow up. This is just an aside about the speeder bikes, because I kind of want to run something like that for these speeder bikes, since that's basically all we saw them do in episode 6 is run in the trees and stuff whenever they hit terrain. I kind of wish that was a thing, but oh well. Moving on to our final category in the Imperial faction, which is the heavy unit type. Starting off with the Gav tank. I think this thing is too... I don't really like it. I'll be putting it above the E-Web. I much rather take other heavies. Actually, any of the other heavy options. Which is why it's going in D. So yeah. It has Armor 5, Arsenal 2, Reposition, Transport, and Weak Point 1 sides, which means if the enemy unit's on the side, they get Impact 1 against it automatically. In one of its side arcs, which pretty easy to do with this thing. So yeah. There's not much I can say about it. I'd much rather take one of my other heavy units, which I am about to get into. Starting off with the LAAT, or the LAT. I like this thing. I'm putting it in an A. I have a lot of stuff in A. I think it's pretty solid for just getting a unit out further onto the battlefield. It has Armor 5, Arsenal 2, Cover 1, Hover Air 2, Immune Blast, Melee, and Range 1 weapons, and Transport, which is why it's allowed to get a unit onto the field further. I think this is a great unit for transport in both the Imperial and Gar faction, and which is just really nice. It can also contest objectives really well, so I rate it for that. Killing potential, I have this thing die all the time on me, so which is why it's only in A rather than in S. Otherwise, I'd put it in S. If it didn't die so much, probably be an S, but it's a little bit easier to kill than the other heavies that we're about to talk about. So, without further ado, though, we are going to move on to my favorite, the one held dear to my heart, the ATST. With 11 hit points, armor 5, arsenal 2, and weak point 1 rear, which is pretty hard to do on these things. I'm putting it in S. This thing is a tank. It's really hard to kill. Its normal gun is double rainbow at range 1 to 4 with impact 3 fixed front. I love taking it with Governor Wes, I believe is how you say his name, which gives it Arsenal 4 and Field Commander, and then putting the remaining 3 guns or hard points onto it and using those to split up its pool to deal out lots of suppression into an enemy units on the battlefield. Might make a video about some Imperial lists that I've had some luck running in this new edition of the game, and kind of my theory behind them. I have some lists cooking that I want to play around with first before making it. Just because the Imperial faction overall right now in the current edition of the game is lacking, is what I've heard, and especially when it comes to competitive play apparently. But so I'm going to try to see if I can cook up anything that might help. Again, I don't play competitively, so who knows how much it will help. But we'll see, and you can leave comments if you want to see that or not. But yeah, I really like the ATST. I almost always take an ATST just because of how good they are in the game. They're just super fun to play, super menacing, super great at controlling an objective or two. They're just solid units in the game. And without further ado, we have my most hated unit in probably all of Star Wars Legion, and that is just because in the previous edition, anytime I would face the Empire, maybe not anytime, but anytime I'd face the Empire and I saw this unit in the game, I knew I was going to have a rough game, and that is the Dark Troopers. This unit used to be a menace. It had full armor, which means that you needed impact to kill it. It was just super annoying to face. Each of the minis have 2 health. It's just really annoying when coming up against this. It has plotting, it has unconcerned, unstoppable, and now only has armor 3. So it's a little bit easier to kill, which I am so thankful for. I haven't put it up on the tier list yet because I just am reminiscing about how hard this thing was to kill. And now it kind of sucks. So we're going to be putting it in B. They are too slow because plotting they can only make 1 move per activation. With Unstoppable, they get 2 activations in a round, but 1 move per activation. So they're still moving twice a round. It's just 1 and 1 on each different activations. They're a little bit easier to kill with only armor 3, which means you only have to roll 3 hits before you can do sweet damage to them. They still have red saves, so they have that going for them. And they have Unconcerned, which means they don't get cover. So, I mean, they're never going to get cover. They can never get suppressed or panicked, though, since they have Null Courage. So there's that. So they can still be a little bit threatening on the battlefield. They're just slow, and that is why they're in B tier. Because of how slow they are, they're worse at contesting objectives. They're really, really good at killing things still. So watch out if your opponent has one, because it can probably wreck a unit or two of yours. Especially if they have a fully built Imperial Dark Trooper, which is a lot of points, which means they're not worth ever taking. Just the point cost alone for these guys, for a good unit of them, and how not effective they are on the battlefield, you're probably not going to see much of these in your games. For a fully built unit, it is 227 points. That is with both of their heavy upgrades and their personnel upgrade on them. So yeah, you're probably not going to see a fully built one, but even a lesser built one can still be dangerous if they get close to your units or within range of your units. So I would watch out for those. But yeah, I'm happy, a little bit happy that they are weaker than they are or used to be, because they were just oppressive before. They used to be just oppressive, and they're a little bit less oppressive, or a lot less oppressive, I should say. However, I do think that they could use some point tweaking so that they're a little bit more viable now with the current meta of the game, because 227 points for a fully built unit is kind of insane for not getting much out of them. But yeah, without further ado, again, that is my Imperial unit faction tier list. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and a comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!